Today on GreenCars The Podcast, we look into gasoline cars that have been converted into all-electric vehicles. Find out more right now. Welcome to GreenCars The Podcast, where we talk about all things involving hybrid, plug-in hybrid, electric vehicles, and today, EV conversions. I'm Trish Glose.
And I'm Dave Nichols. Today we peel back the mystery on how to convert a gasoline-powered car into an electric vehicle. And Trish, I don't know, do you remember there was a time when people would convert their car to make it more fuel efficient by using used French fry oil?
Okay, I have no idea what you're talking about. French fry oil?
Yep, vegetable oil as fuel was a big thing about a dozen years ago.
Okay, you've got to be kidding.
No, I had a friend who converted her Volkswagen diesel to run on used French fry oil that she got free from a restaurant. Mm-hmm. The only problem was it always smelled like French fries when it would go down the street. Made you really hungry.
I love French fries. I also love the way you say Volkswagen, but this has to be a joke.
No, not at all. These grease cars, as they were called, were among the first to go green by using biodiesel, but ultimately hauling around 40-pound drums of veggie oil was very messy and not something the average person wanted to get involved with.
It does sound like something, though, our producer might try.
Yes, I asked him if he would be interested in EV conversion. He said he's just not that religious.
Okay. Lucky for all of us, we know someone who has a lot of experience converting gasoline-powered cars into electric vehicles.
Yes, that would be our EV expert, Chase Drum. But before we ask Chase how he made this miracle happen, let's visit the Oregon Electric Vehicle Organization event in Portland, where our own Jesse Hitty found a unique Honda Insight conversion.
Yes.
Well, I'm Jesse here at the Oregon Electric Vehicle Association EV event in Portland, Oregon, and I'm here with Will, and he's got a pretty special Honda here. So tell me, what is this car exactly?
Well, this car started life as a Honda Insight. After GM ceased their production of the EV1s way back when, Honda responded with a car that was very similar. They couldn't get all of the technology, so it was a hybrid. My good friend John Wayland of Plasma Boy fame bought a brand new Honda Insight, took the gas engine out. We helped him get an EV1 power module, which is the electric motor with the differential all-in-one unit, and we transplanted that in to replace the gas engine. So this is a totally electric car, basically an EV2.
Oh, wow, that's great. So when it comes to charging it and stuff like that, how do you do that?
This charges from any regular charger. You can use just about any EV charger. We made 2 or 3 cables, but this will use either, and it'll use all the modern Tesla chargers, the fast chargers, the DC chargers.
That's great. Do you usually charge it at home?
Usually. Find that for general EV driving, and it's the same with nearly every EV, you only charge the thing once or twice a week.
When it is fully charged, how many miles do you get?
We haven't stretched its legs yet.
And how fast does it go?
Oh, this car will do 100 comfortably.
Okay.
Yeah, she's a quick little car, there's no doubt about that. And it's very aerodynamic.
So is there anything else about this car in particular that's pretty special with this particular car?
The lithium battery pack is handmade from lithium batteries retrieved from a crashed Apache helicopter.
Wow, okay. So that's pretty amazing.
Yeah. And we built the modules. I think the big thing is all the hand-built stuff. Everything has to be perfect, picture perfect. And every single function that was on this car new works. The HVAC, the heating, the cooling, cruise control, all the lights, everything. So taking out the gas engine, integrated in an EV1 electric engine, and we have full functionality of a modern-day car.
That's pretty amazing, just all of that detail work that goes into making all that function.
Yeah.
So how difficult was that to do?
It's time consuming, there's no doubt about that. And the biggest problem was that the EV1 motor has 3 times the torque of the gas engine. So a lot of time went into engineering engine mounts that didn't break.
You need probably something like NASCAR level, right?
Oh no, they're not strong enough.
Okay, so stand corrected. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, well, it's, a gas engine delivers full torque at peak revs. This delivers 100% torque at 0 revs.
That makes sense. That's pretty amazing. All right.
Things have got to Things have got to be engineered not to break. And
Awesome.
it's a sweet little car.
All right. Well, thank you for your time. I appreciate you telling us all about this car. We'll see you around.
You see the license plate?
AC/DC.
Love it. That's so cool. We talked about the EV1 in our interview with Alexander Paul in the last episode. These guys managed to build a better EV1, which is really cool. But not all EV conversions are based on more modern vehicles, right?
That is true. In fact, last year you found a fascinating older gasoline car that was converted into an all-electric vehicle in the form of a classic British sports car, the 1972 MGB.
So cool. And it was created by a man who has a true love for these old MGs.
Yep, let's check it out.
Trish here at GreenCars event, hanging out with Joe and some really cool cars. Tell me about your vehicle. It was the first one I noticed when I drove up on the lot.
Oh, well, thanks for that. It is a 1972 MGB GT that's been converted to electric.
Okay, so first question, why did you convert this to an electric car?
Well, because the MGB GT is my favorite car in all the world. This is the fourth one that I've owned. So I rebuilt the other ones. I worked at Bramo making electric motorcycles at the time, so I had access to all the components and all the knowledge that it would take to do this, and so it was really a fun project to do.
I bet. Tell me, does this essentially, converting this to electric, make it last forever?
So far it has. It's been my daily driver since October of 2016, and it's got many miles on it. I've raced it, quote unquote. It's an MG, so racing, yeah. Anyway, but I've raced it twice at Laguna Seca. So it's a very capable car. It's as capable as it ever was with gasoline power.
Look at you. All right, take me on a tour. I'm gonna have you tell me what we're looking at right here.
Yes. Okay. So what we've done is we took out 300 pounds of gasoline engine and all of the stuff that goes with it, and in its place, down on the bottom of these three wires underneath there, you can't see it, is the electric motor that weighs 100 pounds and also produces about 100 horsepower, the same as the gasoline engine did, and that's by intent. It could be a more powerful motor if we wanted it to be, but I wanted to preserve the original characteristics of the car. So it is hooked up to an adapter plate, and I run the standard transmission, and the clutch and all the rest of the stuff is just as it was when the car was built in 1972. On top of that, this green box is the motor controller, also known as the inverter. It takes in about 350 volts of DC current in the back and converts it to three-phase AC to feed the motor right here, okay? The silver box on top is a DC to DC converter. It takes in that 350 volts of DC current and converts it, steps it down to 12 volts of DC current to run your headlights and your horn and your turn signals and all the regular car components, okay? So, as I said, there are 8 batteries. Each one produces about 3 kilowatt hours. So I have 24 kilowatt hours on board, giving the car about 100 miles range. These are the last 2 of the batteries back here. Okay. This is the charger. And so I've got the charger wired up right over here to where in the old days you would put the gasoline in.
Oh.
And so I plug it in right here with this plug, and then with this plug over here,
yep,
we plug it right into the house.
Right in the house. You don't have anything special.
Nothing special. And it takes about 8 hours for a full charge, and I can bypass this system if I have a more powerful charging available to me, like at a rest area or something like that, and I can get 230 volts. I can bypass that and charge it in 4 hours.
And so I read you built this with your son?
I did, yes.
How special?
Oh, it was special, yeah. And we're still doing it.
And then I heard someone ask you, how much would it take to convert their vehicle something like this? How much would it take? How many man hours?
Oh my goodness. Okay, so Yeah, and there's a lot of different ways. Thanks to all these other cars, the more modern cars that we have, there's a lot of different ways to do it now. You know, you can adapt from the frame of a different car and all of this. This one is kind of pieced together, which is beautiful in that you can see all the different components and things like that. That's one way to do it. If you were to do it this way, you would want to count on spending at least $5,000 on batteries and another $5,000 on the motor and the motor controller. Okay, so I would say $10,000 minimum. And then on the labor, it would have to be a labor of love.
Well, it was for you. Your favorite car hopefully lasts forever because of this conversion.
Yes, I think that it's going to last a long, long time. It's showing no signs of age. Like me.
Of course. Me too. Me too.
And see, that's one way to take a car that's your favorite car, the year, make, and model you like, and make sure it lives forever.
Absolutely. Cool car, cool guy. I'd like to try converting something like a classic Ford Mustang into an EV.
Well, today is your day, because a little later we're going to show you a gorgeous restored 1966 Ford Mustang that's been converted to be all electric. But first, let's take a look at the latest EV news.
Here's what's up. Yahoo Finance says that EV charging infrastructure could be the biggest opportunity in finance today. Blink Charging CEO Brendan Jones recently discussed driver concerns over EV charging and range anxiety, noting that multifamily spaces are adjusting across America, and gave Massachusetts as an example, saying, quote, "You can't repave, relight, or create a new parking place in Massachusetts without 10 to 15% EV chargers being installed." He says we have to change the paradigm to improve DC fast charging to meet big demands to come.
So investing in charging networks might be a smart move right now. And Jones says Blink Charging is, of course, also focused on installing EV chargers in homes to prepare for the electrification of America.
Meanwhile, United States Postal Service recently unveiled its first EV charging stations at its sorting and delivery center in South Atlanta, and hundreds of these charging stations will be installed all across the country this year. Deployment of electric mail delivery trucks will start in Georgia and then expand across America.
Bloomberg News tells us that America needs EVs that the average person can afford, and says that they're on the way. From the Volvo EX30 to Honda's Prologue, automakers are set to debut 24 new EVs in the U.S. this year, and many are on the affordable side. These new models represent a 50% increase in EV models on the market, and many will cost under $50,000. Kelley Blue Book says that these are positive signs that more affordable electric cars will be coming soon.
And being that the show focuses on EV conversions, a company called EV West produces and sells entire EV conversion kits that include everything you need to turn your gas-burning classic car into an all-electric wonder.
And that takes us to the wizard of all electric wonders, Mr. Chase Drum.
Chase, welcome back. Did you know that you're the wizard of all electric wonders?
I just learned that. This is some breaking news.
Now, Chase, we understand you've had some personal experience in converting gas cars to EVs. We want to hear all about it. What was your first EV conversion?
Yeah, I mean, I've had quite a bit of different experience with EVs of all types. I mean, the first thing that really kicked it off was back in high school. I used to build and race these small electric vehicles that we built from anything from steel to aluminum tubing. And it was part of a thing that's called known as the Electrathon America series. And admittedly, it was what really kind of got me hooked on this. And it's been a lot of fun to really see others continue to do that. And then there's obviously programs like SAE for college. But right now, I'm actually been working on restoring a 1987 Land Rover Defender 90, and also kind of helping a few other friends with a couple projects that they're looking to do kind of on the smaller scale, just almost building these conversions for commuting around town. So they're not really expecting much range. They just want something that's cheap, easy, and reliable. So that's been a lot of fun. And then even most recently, and I think for anyone that's listening to this and does have an interest or has a car that they want to convert themselves, I can't recommend the program. I'm not sponsored by them. But I took a program in Phoenix, Arizona by a company called Legacy EV, and I know the whole team there. They're fantastic. And it's been great to work with them. And I think what's really valuable is, especially for people who might be new to this or don't have any hands-on experience, there is definitely some classwork, but the vast majority of it is you are literally wiring motors to batteries, and it just gives you a really good exposure for people that are new to this, or even if you're a mechanic that just haven't had a lot of experience with high voltage systems. So can't recommend that enough. And that's something that even as someone who's kind of been working in this space for a while, it's still the Wild West in a lot of ways. So that was kind of one of these things to really bring all these different knowledge bases I had and work with others from people at companies such as like Shelby America to other auto OEMs that are showing a huge interest into this space and making fully ground up electric vehicles too. So can't recommend that enough. And even working on a project right now with some people locally to build adapter plates for EVs, which essentially means for certain car models, you need to have a connecting piece really from the motor to the actual drive shaft. And believe it or not, that's something that's kind of in shortage right now.
Well, and that's something we wanted you to explain to people, is kind of walk us through what has to be done when you switch from a gasoline vehicle to an electric conversion. What has to happen?
Yeah, this podcast is about to get real long, real quick if I was to go into all of that. But honestly, a big part of what determines kind of the severity of the conversion and what's going to be needed is not just the brand, but the model of car that you're looking to convert. First, I do want to say it's wild how many videos now are out there and just kind of documentation for doing conversion. So if you have a car that you're already thinking about, just go to Google. Professor Google will probably have the right answer for you to see how feasible and how much work's required. But it's just amazing. Whereas like even 5 and especially like 10 years ago, this was almost considered like anyone that had a electric vehicle conversion is like having a homebrew kit in their garage. It's kind of a science project, and now it's still early, but it's become much more mainstream, and finding the right parts, finding the information is a lot more prevalent. So it can be daunting, but it just depends on the model. So for some cars, you may have to replace the brake system and go with, or move it to an electric brake system. With others, you might have to also look at what you have for a radiator and cooling of the batteries. You might need a new radiator and cooling system. I think another big thing that people don't realize too is the AC and heating for your car. It's usually driven by the fans or the belts coming from the engine. And since that's gone, you have to replace that or find a way to usually have it part of your now 12 volt system and have an electrical version for it. And there's quite a few kits, especially for older cars, that may not even come with an electric AC or heating. Like my project I'm working on, that Defender 90, it doesn't even have a radio. So it's kind of funny going through this process, how many of these things you can now buy as add-ons to make it better than it was coming out of the factory. So I do think there are some really big things you have to think about. Obviously, I think a lot of people focus on the motor and battery, and that's a big part of it. The real big thing, though, is the 12 voltage and the low voltage system, is figuring out how is the brakes, how are the lights, how are all these different subsystems that are already working in your car going to now interact with the high voltage system? Because essentially, instead of having an alternator that you would traditionally run off the engine that would then power these systems, you're going to actually just have what's known as a DC to DC converter. And in some ways, that's really effective because it just minimizes the chance of having to deal with like a dead battery. But it's essentially taking a lot of the energy from the main pack, bringing that down from what's most likely like a 400 volt system to the low voltage 12 volt system, and making sure that all those systems are communicating. And so that brings you into dealing with wiring harnesses. And the thing I cannot recommend enough is making sure that, even though for a lot of people it can be tedious and the boring part, the more you plan in advance, the more you try and think about this, you are going to save so much time. You're going to have so many fewer migraines. And honestly, it's going to be much safer. And it really just depends on the plan of attack and to what scale you want to do this conversion.
Chase, let's talk price tag. I'm guessing that converting a car to all electric is a lot easier today now that there are more EVs on the market and to source parts from. But I'm assuming you're doing all this mechanical work yourself. So let's talk cost. What does all of this cost? The electric motor, regenerative braking, how much does that cost? And what about the battery pack? How much does that cost?
Yeah, those are all great questions. And I think those usually are where people kind of get tripped up and have sometimes a misunderstanding of what not only the workload is going to be, but what the actual outcomes are. Because you can do some quick Googling and you can find these high-end builds there in the six figures, but that's kind of a whole nother level. That's like if you're doing a crate engine drop, and you can find those for combustion engines too. So there's really, if you want to, we'll start with kind of what would be an example of maybe a more cost-effective build, kind of going back to what I was talking about around those kind of around town commuter vehicles. So a great example would be, once again, that company, Legacy EV, they do training, but they're also a parts supplier for North America. And they just announced a couple of days ago a new it's about $9,000, but it's essentially a full kit from anything you can think and need to do a conversion, with essentially a modified Leaf battery pack and Leaf motor. So it's not going to set any world records for speed, but it's kind of gotten all the most difficult stuff figured out for you already, all the low voltage stuff, and you can pretty much put it in with not too much work. So that's really cool to see, because there are definitely ways that you can save money when you're trying to do the conversion. I think the biggest area to save money is also potentially the most dangerous and by far the most tedious, and that's to actually build your own battery. And what I mean by that is, right now, with exactly what you're talking about, there's so many more kits and things available and kind of productized for people doing this that do, especially for your first kit or your first conversion. I really wouldn't recommend building your own battery, but essentially that's where you can take all the cells, and depending on what type of cell, whether you're doing like a prismatic or kind of those cells you see all the time that look like kind of a AA battery, you could put hundreds to thousands of those, wire them in series, wire them in parallel, get them to the right voltage and pack size you want, and boom, you have a battery. And for some of those builds, I do know people that had done the whole conversion for about $5,000 to $6,000. That's including a motor. Once again, it's not going to be the speediest thing, but they put it into a small car. It has plenty of range and it does well. Admittedly, that was a couple years ago. Prices are coming back down, thankfully, for a lot of that stuff. But I think for anyone that's realistically trying to do it, I think it would be hard to do it yourself for under $10,000, with especially this new kit that Legacy EVs kind of brought onto the table. There's a couple others out there. I've just personally know the team and seen the work they do, and it's something I can kind of personally feel okay with recommending, at least from what we've seen so far. And it's just one option to look at. Now, the other thing, you can go in kind of the complete opposite direction and do these high-end builds. And what's really interesting too is, especially with Tesla parts, there's so many salvage motors and batteries that those are actually really cheap and provide so much power. So for about $5,000, maybe $6,000, you can go to a junkyard, get a salvaged Tesla Model S rear motor, put that in your car, and you have anywhere from 500 to maybe even close to 650 horsepower out of this rear drive unit. Those things are awesome. They're super reliable. People have done plenty of conversions for them. And really, they're an all-around great option. The downside is, once again, it's salvage, but more or less that's rare to have that much of an issue. And there are companies now that'll test it for you really easily. The bigger thing then is finding the right battery pack. And once you start dealing with these really high horsepower motors, you have to have a much higher voltage in the pack. So the pack itself has to be bigger. You have to have better cooling, and it kind of then cascades there to be more expensive. But once again, if you want to look at like doing a V8 crate engine and make some awesome muscle car, and you're just interested in burnouts, it may actually be cheaper, and it's definitely going to have a much better burnout situation going to an electric motor than it would even with a combustion engine. You're just going to go through tires much faster. So I realize I just covered the whole gambit there of different options, but it's great that there are so many options out there for every kind of interest and skill set for people that are intrigued by this. And we're seeing so many more mechanics now that are kind of coming from the traditional combustion space that are kind of wanting to learn more. So even if you're not doing, you can at least maybe get the parts and find a local mechanic that you can take it to and then work with them to figure out what that would entail.
Well, then on the other hand, you could just pick up a used low mileage Chevy Bolt for about $15,000, right?
Yeah, but then you're driving a Chevy Bolt, Dave. No, I'm just kidding. It just depends what you want to do. And I couldn't agree with more, actually. The used EV market has never been better. One, there's more variety, but two, it just means you're getting a much better deal. And yeah, you're exactly right. You can sign a few papers, pay it, walk off the lot, and you have something that'll work, consistent, easy. We're talking about EV car conversions. So yes, that is part of it. And to be honest with you, if you're just curious about it, but you're realistically going to go and you're really maybe just even looking for a second car and you don't have a donor car anyway, you're totally right, Dave. Like, just walk to a local dealer. There are plenty of EVs for sale right now. And to be honest with you, there's so many that are looking to move metal. So even if you're not finding like the best deal locally, there's probably a dealership not too far away that has some extra EVs that they're trying to get rid of. So it really is just, I always recommend if you're going to do an EV conversion, you have to be realistic with yourself and realize that the other thing I tell people first actually is I want to make sure they know what the most common depreciating asset is, and that is a car. So if they're thinking about putting all this money into a car to then maybe flip it or something, probably the worst way you can do that is to do an EV conversion, honestly, at least in my opinion. The best thing you can do is go find like a used car that's already had a lot of that depreciation, take the hit, you got the ease of it, and you're good there. And you probably have even some warranty left with those. So I think you got to go into a conversion really as maybe a hobby. You can, if you have to do a lot of research if you want to do kind of that really econo build for around town thing. It's definitely doable, and the prices are coming down. So maybe we should have this conversation another year or two, and maybe that mid to like 5,000 to 8,000 mark will be even more common, easier, even with labor and stuff. But we're still a little bit early days, and it is probably going to be the best value for people that just want an EV for around town or second car. Just go to their local dealership. But for those of us that like to kind of play and tinker, the EV conversion space, I don't think has ever been better. And there's a lot of cool things going out there. Just get on Google and you'll see a lot of great builds out there.
All right, Mr. Wizard, we've got to let you go. Thanks for your info and your time today. We look forward to chatting with you soon.
Yes, thanks, Trish. Always my pleasure speaking with both of you. Have a good one.
So you see there, we have learned that new and used EV prices will be coming down and make it more affordable for all Americans to go green. But there's still a place for EV conversions, especially if you have a car that means something special to you, like that 1966 Ford Mustang that we mentioned earlier.
Yes, you promised, and I would love to see one of those classics that's been restored and converted to all electric.
Well, wait no more as we head back to the Oregon Electric Vehicle Organization event in Portland, where Jesse presents Trish's dream car.
Yes.
I'm Jesse with GreenCars, and I'm here at the Oregon Electric Vehicle Association's EV event in Portland, Oregon. And we are here with a really cool Mustang, and I am here with, what was your name again?
Dan Kisting.
Dan? Okay, and what do you got here for us?
So I have a 66 Ford Mustang convertible. It was converted about 2 or 3 years ago with the help of John Whalen. And once I saw the car, it was a beautiful car. It was an impulse buy. I felt that I had to buy it. However, everything inside of it was all wrong. And after a few near-death experiences in the car, I did a little search online, and that's where I found John. And we came up with the idea and the passion. And it's been a little bit of a long road, but here we are. And the car runs beautifully. The range is about 120 miles. I can charge it up in about 2 hours. And it's something that when I pass, I can hand over to my kids and feel at peace that this car will be safe, and it's a wonderful, wonderful piece of machinery.
That was a lot. That was great. So you said this was an impulse buy.
It absolutely was an impulse buy.
Okay, so let's go into that a little bit. Why was it an impulse buy?
I grew up having a Mustang as a kid. My brother had a Mustang, and it was something I always fell in love with. And so I knew the moment I saw it that I had to have it.
What would you say is probably the coolest thing about this car?
The coolest thing about the car is just the drive, going up hills and hearing just the little view, and just it's clean, just all the looks and the attention that I get from it.
Without all the noise, right?
Exactly.
That's great. So this thing kind of feels like a roller coaster when you put the foot on there?
Absolutely. It's just fun. It puts me back and I'm like, wow.
Is this kind of your daily commute around town kind of car?
Right now, it could be. I have a few more things to get fixed on it with the convertible top, but once that's the plan.
That's awesome. Well, is there anything else that's really special about this car that you want to share with us, or?
No, it's a one of a kind, and it's the hard work of long couple years worth of passion, and I'm just glad to see that it's here and that it's clean.
All right. Well, I appreciate your time, and I hope that you have a great rest of your day.
It's real clean. That's so shiny.
It's very shiny, right?
We were talking
Pretty
about how
cool.
shiny that car is. That's incredible. Yeah. I want one of those, and maybe a T-Bird. We could add that to my list.
Absolutely.
Okay.
This proof that an all-electric car can be anything that you dream of today. I mean, different people have different ideas about what their dream car might be for an EV conversion. My dream car would be a 1961 Jaguar E-Type convertible, I think. Yeah, but for others we interviewed in Portland, a dream car could be anything, like this Chevy Corvair.
I'm here with Summer, who's got a really unique type of EV. So, Summer, what kind of car is this?
This is a 64 Corvair, Chevy Corvair convertible. It's a Monza, if that matters. It's a rear engine car from Chevy in the 60s. Soon I'll be adding power steering to it and a collapsible steering column because it doesn't have a collapsible steering column. So that's about it. Upgraded the brakes for the most part.
Okay, sounds awesome. So when you say upgraded brakes, does that include like regenerative braking or anything like that?
Yeah, it's a rear motor car, so regenerative braking only works in the back. So it actually requires that you do some extra balancing of the braking with a brake bias system. But yeah, it does do regenerative braking, and I also can do one pedal driving if I want to.
Wow, that's pretty cool. So that's almost like a Tesla feature that's just in your really awesome car that you've got here. That's so cool. About how much horsepower does this thing have?
It has 120 horsepower and about 180 foot-pounds of torque. Comes out of a net gain Hyper 9 motor, which is one of those AC motors. You see them a lot. In fact, I've seen that Mustang that's over there as well.
Oh, cool.
Pretty common for homebrew conversions. I just did this in my garage.
Wow. Okay, so you did all of this yourself. Wow. Okay, and so what's that process like of like start to finish doing something like this?
It's utterly overwhelming at first, but the internet's very helpful for sorting out all the options. So tons of different motor options that you can buy, tons of different battery options that you can get, and then the bits and bobs in order to make it work together you can buy, you get to choose. And so I just chose what I thought was a reasonably low risk setup, just because it was my first one. And there are ways to do it for cheaper, and there are ways to do it to make the car faster. There are all kinds of different ways to do it. You just got to choose what based on your priorities, what your priorities are.
Gotcha. Okay. And so what would you say the 0 to 60 time is on this?
7 seconds. It's not a rocket.
Well, I would say plenty fast enough for your day-to-day kind of commute and stuff like that.
The speedometer is so optimistic. I've never actually measured it, so I wouldn't trust it anyway.
That sounds fine, So how much range do you get?
I get 100 miles if I'm ginger with it, but the way I drive it, about 90. And if I charge it up to 100%, which I've never actually done, I'd probably get maybe a little over 100 miles.
That's pretty good.
It doesn't shift, and so the motor is asked to spin at a high RPM on the freeway, which makes it a little bit less efficient.
Gotcha. Okay. And so how long does it take to usually recharge your vehicle?
It's another great question. I don't really know because I just plug it in when I go to bed and it's charged when I wake up. So somewhere less than 8 hours. I'd probably say like 6 or something like that.
I would say that's pretty good then. You just plug it in when you go to bed at night and you're ready to go the next morning. That's great. Can you give us a tour of the car? Kind of give us an overview of all the different components?
Yep. Up front, since this is a rear engine car, there's a lot of room up front, so the entire battery pack lives up front. It's got Tesla Model S modules from a 2015 Tesla that got off the internet. There's 7 of them in here, so it makes for just over 36 kilowatt pack. The gas gauge, I recently, after the car was running for a while, I made the gas gauge work to tell us what the battery level is, so that took some rewiring to do. In the middle of the car, I basically want the car to look stock because I respect the design from the designers and from Chevy, and so I try to make it as little change as possible, so there's no screen in there. So this is the net gain Hyper 9 motor. It's 120 horsepower. The motor that came in the car is 110, so it's really close to what was in the car, so it's nothing crazy. And I didn't have to reinforce the chassis or do anything magic in order to handle the extra power and torque. And that truss structure and everything like that is home designed and built, and so I designed all of that, and the motor controller's back there. Typically people water cool the motor controller, but since there's room for it there, I just stuck it there, and then underneath is a large heat sink that I deliberately chose to look like a finned oil pan because I didn't want people to know that this was an electric car. The only time people know is when we start to drive away and they're like, what the heck, why is it so quiet? And we tell them and then they, double take. So it's pretty cool.
So you're trying to keep it on the down low is what you're trying to say.
Totally, yeah.
Impressive.
Mm-hmm.
But I will stick to my Mustang if that's all right with everybody.
Yes.
Now, Dave, as for your Jaguar XKE,
Yeah.
we have a picture of it. If you're watching this episode and the screen behind us, look at that. That's pretty.
Gorgeous. Yep.
That's real pretty. Now, a company in Florida called ECD Auto Design makes an E-type electric convertible roadster.
Mm-hmm.
Pricing begins at a cool $300,000.
So lunch money.
Chump change.
Yeah.
It's just chump change.
Okay.
Exactly.
Well, I think it looks like I may have to stick with a used Chevy Bolt. But next time we'll delve into the problems that EV owners are having with charging stations and what is being done to fix them. You won't want to miss this one.
Or my anxiety around charging stations. So
Yes.
don't forget, when it comes to EVs, stay informed, stay charged. We'll see you next time.
Follow us at GreenCars HQ. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Email us, thepodcast@greencars.com.